I'd been doing sadhanas, and that had been my practice, and I'd already developed quite a strong practice. My friends by that time, I had many friends outside of the community in yoga, and they knew not to call me after 9 at night, because I just wasn't available anymore. I was in bed because I was preparing for my sadhana to be up and doing my practice. So for many, many years, I had a very strong self-discipline, and I took it seriously. That was part of me taking the keys to open sadhana. That was part of me. On some level, I knew I had to hone and crystallize something in myself. So I put myself in that very deep practice and discipline.
Hey, everybody. This is Sandesh again from the Kundalini Yoga Club. We are here again at the Kundalini Awakening podcast from Karma to Dharma. And today I bring to you Siri Sadhana Kaur. I heard her voice, I think 7-8 years ago on the Kundalini Yoga Festival. I was in my own process at that time. It was not, I noticed her, but this year at the festival, oh my gosh, was she present, and I felt her amazing presence and ability to take people on a yoga experience, a mantra experience, a dancing experience on the main field. And something in me said, you have to have her on your podcast. And I'm so happy she's here today. Welcome, Siri Sadhana.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, it took me a while, but I'm so happy you're here because I think you have such a presence, and I don't know how you build it, but wow, what a presence you have when you make everybody dance. How does that feel for you when you make everybody dance?
Oh, that's such yeah, thank you. I just always loved doing that. There's nothing like having a good old dance, and then other people doing that dance with you is just absolute ecstasy. When you can share what you love and then they come with you in that love, it's ecstatic, it's joyful, it's beautiful. So when I'm teaching, I feel really privileged to be able to share what I love. I mean, isn't that what we all want to be doing in life, right? Sharing what we love.
Yeah, and if you can dance with it, it's extra nice.
But what I love, and I work a lot with voice and with the body, and it doesn't matter even if you've got two left feet. I always say that, this isn't about being a great dancer. It's just about moving. It's about expressing like you did as a child. When you heard music, you would jump up and you'd writhe around. It wouldn't necessarily be coordinated. It would be a bit discombobulated, but there would be full expression. We didn't have the same inhibitions. And that is what I love when I teach or guide people through a dance sequence or singing or chanting, is to just, invite them to come into that really powerful place within them that is beyond all of our restrictions, imprisonments, patterns, beliefs that we put on ourselves. So there's this sense of liberation and freedom that is so powerful, and it's infectious, right? Like what you say, right? You go, oh, and that's it. You put some really good music on, right? And you start really going for it, and people just want to be part of it. Yeah, you don't need
Yes,
to convince anyone. The proof's in the pudding, as they say.
for sure. I was sitting there, and I remember it was one of you know, at the evening time, you have some time to talk to each other. And finally, after all the workshops, and I remember I was talking, and then you came on, and you start to bring people alive, just make them dance. And I remember I just said, sorry guys, I just need to go to the floor. I need to participate. I just need to dance. It still brings a lot of joy in me just to remember that instant spontaneous effect what you managed to evoke within me.
Mm. Yeah, well, we're blessed to be able to move our bodies, aren't we? And however that looks, doesn't matter. If we can get to that space where we can feel that internal joy and freedom, then wahiguru, job done, right?
Yeah. Now, many of the people probably don't know you. Can you maybe rewind? Who were you, and how long ago was that before Kundalini stepped into your life?
Before Kundalini, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I always try to help people to see, okay, what was their life before Kundalini?
Yeah, well, I mean, before Kundalini, I've always been, on a kind of, what would I say, a spiritual quest in a way. As a child, probably like many of us, I was probably a bit different, bit out there. Um, struggled probably quite a lot as a child and acted out quite a lot as a child. Um, in my teens, I got into like what a lot of teens do, did a lot of drugs, did a lot of searching, a lot of partying. But at the same time, I was always seeking. So I used to, in my hometown, I used to go to spiritualist churches, um, and from that, I was looking for expression always. I was searching and I was doing theatre. Theatre was my main expression. I was studying, I was working. I used to work at markets in Covent Garden. I was waitressing, cleaning. I used to make clocks at one point. But I feel really blessed to have found the spiritual path. And I fell in love. I moved to London from my hometown at quite an young age on my own at 17. And I found through all my studies, I found Tai Chi Chuan at 17 years old. And I trained as a teacher actually in my 20s alongside my developing theatre career, and Tai Chi Chuan and Qigong. I was really captivated by, the poise, the balance, the grace. And it was really, yeah, a soul dance, I would say, for nearly 20 years. So at the same time, I was a performer. I was a seeker too. You know, um, I loved to socialize. I loved to dance, and I traveled. I was interested in human behavior and expression. So theater, I studied at Jacques Lecoq in Paris. It developed in me this sort of inquiry and a love of psychology and people. I studied counseling, NLP, life coaching, and I also worked with mythopoetic and indigenous teaching. And so in 1998, I worked closely. I met Sobonfu Somi, and then her then husband Malidoma Some, who were really the foremost voices in African spirituality, and they were sharing the ancient Dagra tribes' wisdom. So they were from Burkina Faso. So I for the next 19 years, I continued to organize rituals and healing trainings with her in London and in the UK. And then with her, we developed the Ritual Healing Village program in the UK, which we were doing, really powerful communal grief rituals, welcoming ceremonies, birthing rituals. And of course, this was part of my own healing journey. It was really cathartic. But it was also connecting to this deep sense of community, to be able to grieve in community, to be able to really witness, sing. We were drumming. We created a literal village. and
In London.
in London and the UK. Yeah. So
Okay.
we when she came, yeah, I would organize her programs. And so, over the years, I became very close and she became very dear to me. She was really an important influence and in my life as a teacher, as a sister, and she was my daughter's wisdom parent and godmother.
Beautiful.
So yeah, those teachings were really important to me. And
And sorry, you said you were these helping these programs, bringing them to the people in London and UK,
yeah,
help you with your healing process.
yeah.
Could you maybe share with us what you were healing from?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think like all of us, right? We've got these kind of innate traumas, right? We come in with them, don't we? The soul, the teachings of yoga tell us, right? We're coming in with a purpose, with a mission, with something to bring, but also a deep learning, right? The planet becomes the university, if you like. And so my particular journey, as I mentioned earlier, I struggled as a child. My family was probably, I would say, there was poverty, there was dysfunction, there was abuse, there was alcoholism, there was a lot. There was a lot, a lot, a lot. And so as a child, you don't really understand it, right? You can't necessarily make sense. You just respond and then you develop your masks and your characteristics and your personality to be able to cope with that. So I would say, I had very strong addictions, right? They were from a very early age, I developed some strong addictions. They were my go-to. And then, of course, finding Kundalini, I was really confronted with that aspect. So even though I was doing a spiritual journey over many of those years, I was still kind of acting out in different realms, mainly with, my addictions. And it was when I met the path of Kundalini that I really managed to kick some of these major dysfunctional ones. And that happened very early in my practice. And then, of course, as the years went on, I learned more and more through the layers. And that's life's journey, right? Refining through our experience and then what we meet and then our learning. And then how do we marry it all up? And through these teachings, I would say I was a bit, loosey-goosey, wobbly. I didn't have a strong sense of myself or family. I was quite disassociated and estranged from my family. Um, um, and Kundalini really helped me alongside, as I was mentioning, Sabonfu, to connect this community. My friends, my community became my family. So I would say, yeah, that was part of, and has been, and is part of the healing journey.
Mm. Can
Yeah.
you bring us to the moment that you kind of discovered Kundalini? When was that? How was that? The moment you got in touch?
Yeah. So it was, well, actually, the moment was, you never forget these moments, do you?
Yeah.
The groundbreaking moments, right? So that moment was, I had my daughter. I was a single mother. I knew I was going to be a single mother with my daughter, and I was delighted to be pregnant and have a child. I'd wanted that. And I'd had a particularly, long labor, and it had its impact on my body. I wasn't so young. I was in my 30s by the time I got pregnant. And the long labor had really had its impact on my body. You know, I'd been able to do some cranial sacral work, but my body wasn't quite right. And my main practice, as I mentioned, had been Tai Chi Chuan up until that point. I'd been teaching a lot up until I was pregnant. And then when I gave birth, I just really couldn't do a lot. And I wanted to get back in shape. But of course, I was a mum. I was a full-time mum. I was living on my own with my daughter, and I was doing as much as I could. Life changes when you have children, and your friendships change, and your communities change, and everything changes. And so a lot of the support mechanisms that were in place no longer were. And so I was looking for a kind of fitness class, really. I just thought, I need to get my kind of abs going. I need to get my strength again. I was exhausted. My daughter was 1. She just had her birthday party, her first year, I remember. And the day after, I went to my very first Kundalini yoga class. And I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away because it married these aspects of my life. So there we were sitting in this sacred space. I could barely sit even at that point with my body flexibility, etc., due to the labor that I'd had. But I was really blown away, and I was so held by the mantras. And of course, I'd always sung previously. Singing was part of the theatre. You know, singing was my anchor through celebration and party, through heartbreak and despair. You know, I channeled my emotion always through singing, voice, expression, theatre. You know, I wasn't one of those people. I couldn't really sit still at school. I struggled. I was a bit of a fireball. You know, I was out on the sports field, but really singing was an expression. And so there I was in a Kundalini class, and I was able to chant out really loud, and it was so simple. Yeah, the mantras were so simple, and it was a great workout. I was chanting, and then there was sacred. It was like all these aspects of myself, my life, married up. And I can honestly say at that point, I knew, you know, this is 20 years later now, I knew I was going to be a teacher at that point. I just knew it. It was like something really powerfully awoke in me.
In
And
that first class?
oh my God, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I knew it. And from that moment, I can honestly say, you know, I put my whole heart, soul, life into the practice. I mean, it still took me a bit of time to get rid of some of my addiction and stuff, letting go of stuff, but absolutely, I put myself wholeheartedly in, and yeah, have been ever since. You know, sadhanas. I picked up the guitar. I then began. You know, I'm making my 10th album, mantra music, and
What's it called?
made singles along the way. But yeah, I played at literally every sadhana for those first, you know, many years. I was at every sadhana. It was my anchor. It gave me such a strong consolidation, and yeah, it was the biggest blessing that came to me, the practice and the discipline as well, because I hadn't been so disciplined really in any way. You know, I'd never really studied. I struggled at school. I guess I would be on the ADHD dyslexic spectrum for sure. I couldn't sit still. You know, I wasn't a studier, you know, not a reader, none of that. I was running about on the sports pitch, on the netball team, sports track, swimming team. But yeah, sitting down was always a little bit. So yeah, yoga has really taught me that.
Wow.
Still listening. Yeah, what a blessing. Yeah.
And how did it impact you and your single motherhood?
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, my daughter became part of that. So like I say, I put my whole self in. and she came with me. She was on my back. I mean, I laugh about it now. I mean, people thought I was mad. I know that. But it saved me. And so I ran sadhanas. So I always realized, because, you know, I knew that tendency in me, the loosey-goosey lazy, would not get up at 4 a.m. to go to sadhana. So what did I do? I made sure I had the keys and I was responsible to open sadhana and to run sadhana. So I gave myself that task, and therefore my daughter, she would be on my back. I'd have my drum in one on one shoulder, my daughter on my back, and my guitar on the other shoulder. And
No way.
yeah, I was a bit of a warrioress there, I have to say. And anyone who knows me will be laughing, because yeah, they'll remember those days. Yeah, I turned up, showed up, opened up, and
Oh,
ran.
wow.
I mean, I didn't teach it all. I would get other teachers to teach it, and there was a beautiful center back in those days, where I also began the teacher training internship. You know, because I then stepped in on the path to become a trainer. But in those days, there was a great place called Alchemy, which was in Camden, right by Camden Lock. You know, it's where it's all happening, and it was always amazing, because us yogis, we'd all be in white, and you'd come out of Alchemy, and then you'd be meeting the whole of London and the whole Camden vibe, which is, you know, really buzzing, and a lot of goths and a lot of, you know, and there'd be this swan group of whites walking down, and it would be so funny. If ever I dropped back from the group as we were walking, it would be like, yeah, you just so stand out wearing white in Camden, because there was so much black and buzz. And yeah, so yeah, that was how my daughter and motherhood, I became part of it. So everything I did, she was part of. I mean, she was part of my classes. When I taught, she would have to sit at the back, God bless her, being quiet, and or I'd give her a task or a film or something, and you know, she'd be there at the sadhana. She was on the level 1, level 2. She was on the level 3. Yeah, she was on all the training. So she sat in the teachings, and I felt that was a good alternative to what would have been the other alternative, because I remember when I was training with my dear colleague Angad, she'd look at me, you know, we'd be exhausted after running some training or teaching, and she'd go, well, Siri, what else would we be doing, eh? And I thought, yeah, I know what the alternative was. It was party, it was drugs, it was everything else than what we were doing, which felt extremely worthy, for our own healing, but also supporting others to do the same. And I understood that was really important to my life's journey, purpose, etc. So yeah, my motherhood, you know, it's gone through a whole journey. You know, my daughter is now 21. She was 21 this year. So you look back and you go, wow, yeah, those 20 years she was fully immersed in that, and it absolutely informed my parenting, as did, you know, the teachings from Sabonfu's tribe, the indigenous people of the Dagara people of Burkina Faso. You know, a lot of the rituals I did as parenting my daughter, you know, through my pregnancy, through her birth, everything was very deeply immersed in the sacred. And yeah, I feel very blessed to have been guided in the teaching. And then of course, you know, chanting a mantra. You know, my daughter is also, she sings, she's got a beautiful voice. She's sang on nearly all of my albums, actually, and my tracks. Yeah, she's a really, yeah, and she's, in fact, we've just recorded on my next album that's coming out. And you know, she's 21. She's really kind of got a maturity in her voice now. She's got a life experience now. She's been, yeah, living her life, and yeah, it really reflects in her voice and the growth of her talent and skill.
And how is she a Kundalini yogi too nowadays, or is it all within her blood and DNA? She doesn't need to do it anymore because you've done all, you took her everywhere.
Well, let's see. Hey, I mean, life's a journey. She's still young, you know, 21. Goodness, what were we all doing at 21?
Yeah.
She's being a 21-year-old. You know, she lives in Bristol, and I don't know if you know Bristol, the city in the UK. It's quite a party place to be. There's a lot flowing down there. Yeah, she seems to be finding her way. She started the teacher training when she was 15, 16, because she went to Miri Piri for 3 years in India.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So I was very fortunate. You know, I had a lot of support from the community. I put up a GoFundMe page when Aloka, my daughter, when she was I think, was she 13, 12, 13? She was at the festival, right? Because we went to the festival every year. I was always teaching and performing there and sharing music. And she would be on the kids camp and the teens camp. And of course, she got friendly with all the yogis and the yogi children. And she came to me and said, I really want to go to Miri Piri. And I was like, oh, okay. And then we got chatting to other parents and other kids that were going, and you know, the Miri Piri kids always had such a presence at the festival. You know,
Maybe you can explain to people who do not know what Miri Piri is.
okay, so Miri Piri School is a school in India that is based in the foundation and the practice of Kundalini yoga and Sikh Dharma. And it's very near the Golden Temple, which, if anyone hasn't been to the Golden Temple, my goodness, you want to do a journey in life, you go to the Golden Temple. It's the most, no one told me quite like what was the Golden Temple. And when I went there, I was blown away just by how beautiful, how sacred. You can just sit there for hours being immersed in the sound vibration, in the nod, in the shabad, in the chanting. It's just beautiful. You know, the temple sits on the water, and there's this bakama, this outer marble flooring you can just sit on, and it's such a contrast to the outside, which the streets, you know, the Punjabi streets, where it's hustle, bustle, push and shove, loud noise, pollution. It's this complete opposition. Anyway, so, and the kids actually from the school, they go and clean the temple steps. That's part of the practice during the week. So my daughter went to the school, and they do, well, when she was there, they had really, I think it's changing a lot. But they did, you know, a lot of strong practices, yoga, meditation, on the sports pitch. Obviously, they did the studies, they worked with chanting, and then they had that element of savor, you know, the service. So they would go and clean the temple floors, and yeah, beautiful thing. So she had that for 3 years. And then, as I mentioned, I did a GoFundMe page, and I got funding from the community, because, you know, it's not cheap to send your child to a private school.
Mhm.
No, I mean, yeah, it's many thousands. I was, you know, she was in her early years, she was in a Steiner school, Waldorf Steiner,
Yeah.
for her first years up until the age of 9, and then she went into mainstream. And And then it didn't really work. It didn't work for me or her, actually. And then, yeah, Miri Piri became an option, and she wanted it, so she chose it. And so we did the fundraising, and then she went, and for 3 years she was there. The first year, I think, probably was the best for her. Like me, she struggled with schooling. Um, yeah, she wasn't someone that could sit down and study. I think she's got the spectrum also. Um, yeah, she likes to chat. She's a good chatter. She's a good chatter. And yeah.
Wow.
So
Three
yeah,
years your daughter in
so
Mirapuri.
sorry.
So 3 years not having your daughter with you. How did you visit her a lot, or
We did on my actually I had my 50th birthday. I went, they did a trip to, because they do these amazing trips at the school. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I think, when I ask her now how she looks back at her schooling, she just said, no, I don't regret that. She had amazing experience. They went to Rishikesh, they went to the mountains, trekking in the Himalayas. That was their kind of field trips. I mean, not that regularly,
instead of a theme park somewhere, right?
right? Yeah, and so yeah, she had some beautiful experience. I mean, it was very challenging, of course. It's quite something. The school's in this gated environment, and then they're unleashed onto the streets, but in a very protective way. I mean, I always felt like there was, yeah, safety there for her. But yes, I joined. I did. We visited the school the first time. I remember that was the hardest thing, because as a mother, it's just me and her. We were the team, me and her, all her formative years. And then we went to visit the temple, and I just she stayed for a few days, and then I stayed outside of the school. They never really, in those days, they never encouraged you to be around. And in fact, they barely said hello to you. I was like, oh, I'm the parent kind of funding my daughter, and you barely even say hello to me. So that was already like, I felt, oh, that was hard. But then leaving my daughter there, and then she just had a ball, right? She just loved it. It was Halloween. So they did this party, and she was visiting, and they did some dancing, and they visited the temple. They did the saver. And so I was staying at a local place near the temple, and I was like, I was on my own. I was like, oh, what shall I do? I'm kind of just waiting for my daughter to have this great time. And so I really went through a grieving process. Actually, it was really painful. That was my first step of yeah, letting go, because of course it had just been me as a single mother and her, and she did come to everything that I was doing. If I was working, she was there. I kind of believed in that as well, as much as I'm sure she experienced a lot and would say a lot about that as well. Yeah, it wasn't all joy and love and light, but we were very bonded as a mother-daughter relationship. And
How brave of you.
oh, well, I don't brave. Yeah, that's interesting to say, brave. I don't feel I had a choice. We want the best for our kids, right? We want the
Yeah.
best for them. And if I could never have made her do anything like that. She wanted it, and because she wanted it, I was like, yeah, I'm going to make this happen. And we did, and that just felt like the greatest blessing. And I was just so amazed by the donations that came to support that and make that happen. And yeah, what a beautiful experience. So anyway, yeah, I did the trip. I went on my 50th birthday. I said to her, it was Christmas, right? And because I was coming up to 50, I thought I was going to have a big party on my 50th. And then I thought, no, I really want to see my daughter. And so they were doing this trip to Rishikesh, and I I had this idea, and my friends completely warned me away from it. I was gonna turn up. I did surprise her. I didn't tell her I was coming. Um and I was gonna dress up as a Father Christmas. They were all going on their trip. They were going to the train station, and all I was taking with me in my bag, not really any clothes, but just presents for her, the teachers and the other kids, right? So that's all my bags were filled with. So I had this idea, I would come and surprise her at the train station and be dressed as Father Christmas. And then my friends just said, "Oh, no, you can't do that. How embarrassing," right? That's what one of my friends said. And I thought that would be really funny. But anyway, I followed my friend's advice and I didn't dress up as Father Christmas, but I did surprise her. I told the teachers and the school I was coming, and I turned up at the station, and she just turned around, and it was just so beautiful seeing her after that long separation. That would be the longest time we've been apart, which was at that point several months. So we did the trip to Rishikesh, which was amazing. I'd never been there, and just did all the school events. Have you been to Rishikesh?
No, I'll be honest with you. I haven't been to India.
Oh wow, yeah.
I still have to.
Well, maybe, I mean, Rishikesh is another incredible place. So we had the whole experience. So I've been a few times, and it was an incredible place. I mean, gosh, I would have loved that for me. And like I say, she loved the first year. The other 2 years, I think it just got a bit more challenging. She kept saying she wanted to be like a normal teenager. So I think as she got older, she started seeing quite how alternative I was, perhaps, and how she'd been brought up. And she wanted to do the normal sort of teenage partying things. And I guess as a mother, I was always holding back that from her as long as I could.
You were protecting, I guess.
Oh, well, that was that was my commitment. I was Miss Mother Warrior, Mama Bear, and but of course I had to let go, like we do.
Hey, so you said you were holding the sadhana, and the sadhana is the early morning practice for us yogis.
Yeah.
And your spiritual name is Siri Sadhana.
Oh yeah.
Tell us, when did that happen, and how's your relationship with that name?
Oh gosh, you're not asking any of the questions you said you were going to ask, but I'm really happy about that. Well, sadhana, as we know, and and probably many of your listeners know, it's sadhana. It means a daily practice, and when I got given the name, I'll tell you what, I was like, oh my God. I was so excited to get my spiritual name, right? It felt auspicious moment. I'm going to get, something like Prem, which means love, or, I'm going to get some really deeply, profoundly peaceful name, Sukh, And then there I got sadhana, daily spiritual practice. And I just thought, or daily discipline, right? Or self-discipline. That was how I looked at it in those times, of course. And I was gutted. I was like, no. And then at the same time, of course, I'd been doing sadhanas, and that had been my practice. And I'd already developed quite a strong practice. My friends by that time, I had many friends outside of the community in yoga, and they knew not to call me after 9 at night, because I just wasn't available anymore. I was in bed because I was preparing for my sadhana to be up and doing my practice. So for many, many years, I had a very strong self-discipline, and I took it seriously. That was part of me taking the keys to open sadhana. That was part of me. On some level, I knew I had to hone and crystallize something in myself. So I put myself in that very deep practice and discipline. And as I mentioned, that was part of my healing journey. And probably in those days, I was probably a bit strict. And I think I had to be to get up at that time, you know, and it was always very beautiful, you know. When I was doing it at my home, my daughter would just, when she woke up, it was usually by the meditation part, she
Yeah.
would always come and just snuggle into my knee and, you know, be chanting in my lap, you know. And so the sadhana, as much as, yeah, my beginnings with hearing the word and the meaning, it didn't, my heart didn't break open. And yet what it gave me was just so immense, right? That the practice you do stays with you like an anchor. It gives you this vertical connection, and of course through the mantra, through the chanting, we get this vibrational identity, and you come into a connection with that vast sense of yourself, your soul, your destiny. And it's a beautiful thing. I didn't see it at the time, but of course now I can ride off of that, you know, over the years, you know. So yeah, the sadhana, as we know, you know, sadhana is the daily practice, but in Kundalini yoga we do the Aquarian sadhana, which is the 2.5 hours, 2.5 hours. And it's the possibility within that to master ourselves while we're here on earth. So, you know, this is lifetime commitment, right? It's daily when you want it, and it's daily when you don't. And that's not to brutalize ourselves, right? It's not about this practice to, you know, self-flagellate, right? But we get the gift and the gems from the practice, you know. And this is that's the concept with 2.5 hours. Everything you give, you receive back tenfold throughout the day.
I completely agree. I know when I miss it.
That's right. So you dedicate that 1/10 of your practice each day to your higher consciousness, and then your whole day is covered by that returning energy.
Yes.
So yeah, what a beautiful thing. In fact, I remember my teacher, and I remember him saying it, Shiv Charan Singh, who's, if anyone knows Shiv Charan Singh, definitely encourage you to go listen to him. There's lots of YouTube channels. He works with Karan Kriya, the he's guided by the numbers, and he teaches that. And in the early days, he said to me, Sadhana, Siri Sadhana Kaur, yeah, disciple of excellence. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, I completely crushed. I couldn't hold what he was saying in that moment. And I'm not saying today I necessarily do. And yet that as a projection, right? How powerful. To dedicate your life to something greater than one's own ego, out of that I consciousness into the we. You know, we know the spiritual journey is from the lower centers in our body, the chakras, to the anahata, to the fourth chakra, which is, you know, the heart center, where we can really blossom, grow, expand, and truly exist in that state of consciousness awareness, fed by the divine self, right? So yeah, a bit of a journey with sadhana and the name. Yes, Siri
But
Sadhana.
even Siri Sadhana,
Yeah, yeah,
can
yeah.
you? Siri is the all great, right? So how's your relationship now? It's not just sadhana, it's Siri
No, it's
Sadhana.
not sadhana, is it? It's Siri. Well, that's ongoing, isn't it? Because yeah, how does anyone embody that greatness, right? That's part of the mastery, isn't it? And
Mm.
yeah, it's ongoing. You know, we fall along the way, you know, just because we have these really powerful, strong practices. Um, Great in those moments, right? I can work with to embody and to share that greatness of spirit of what we are all a part of. Um, but of course, you know, when it comes to the mundane, the everyday, yeah, I sometimes it feels like a bit of a, you know, strong hat to put on, that great. But from within and from that connection with the great source, universe, essence, then yes, that's my daily prayer and my practice. Yeah.
Gorgeous. And what do you drink after sadhana?
What do I drink after sadhana? Well, what I love to drink after sadhana is the famous, tell me,
Coffee?
used to be, absolutely used to be. Um, that one's fallen away, thank goodness. No, yogi tea, cinnamon, cardamom, ginger, cloves, pepper. I love yogi tea.
The
Uh,
classic one, right?
the classic one, yes, the heating of the spices. And yeah, it's really wonderful, you know, and especially, you know, as I get that older, you know, it helps the digestion. It's really all of these lifestyle changes that you make along the way as a yogi really support um yeah, your life in every way. So yeah, it's very anti-inflammatory. It's linked to a lot, actually, some of the herbs and spices, cinnamon, you know, to things like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. Cardamom, very good for the metabolism,
Mhm.
digestion. And yeah, the ginger is really good for the the intestinal tract. So yeah, I love the taste. I love that kind of herby spicy. I'm not a sort of herb. I'm not a kind of spicy person, but I love those kind of blends, you know, the Ayurvedic blends, because they feel so nourishing and they're warming, and yeah, they're very, yeah.
Yes, I love them too. It's very nutritious, and I'm happy that I found that those options, and
Yes,
relieve myself from the coffee.
yes,
Um,
yes. And it gives you the same kind of kick, doesn't it? Having those
Definitely.
strong, you know, if you've been a coffee, any kind of substance user, then the kick is just gives you that kick. It helps.
And now, now, I think that you've been on your journey in Kundalini for how many years now? 25?
20, 20. Yeah, yeah,
You say you're a lead trainer, a mantra singer.
yeah.
What is it that you most enjoy doing now in in the Kundalini space?
What do I love to do now? Well, I guess what you saw me doing when we met in the festival in France, you know, that's what I do. I travel to festivals, I go, I lead concerts, I teach on teacher trainings, I do gong baths. This weekend I'm running a voice training, working with, you know, empowering through the voice. And I've also been teaching people how to play the gong as well. So sound is very much part of what I do. Expression is very much part of the picture and what I love to do. Um, I mean, I love to share what I've learned, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel very blessed to have had some incredibly fierce, beautiful, crazy, innovative, wild teachers and mentors. All of them really dedicated to a solid, grounded practice. And that inspired that in me. Dancing is very much part. I run a few classes a week teaching mantra dance, which is what you did with me at the festival in France. So yeah, yoga singing as, I would say, soulful medicine for our souls, to embody freedom through dance, voice, expression. Yeah.
Wow, that's so. In a way, I'm happy you went through all these challenges because you really, to my experience, have been able to evoke some really core strength, which embodies the Siri in you. When I heard your name, I really understood. Yeah, you're not just a daily practice. It's kind of grand what you did to just uplift so many people all at once through mantra and dancing. Hmm.
Well, but there's something about that participation as well. I mean, I've done it many times and people aren't up for it, right? I mean, at the festivals, it's wonderful because people are in the right vibe already, and they'll, this is the thing about teaching anything. We of course we all want numbers, right? Numbers amplify the setting, the environment, and for years, I don't know about you, I was teaching very small groups for years and years. And then suddenly when you start to have, bigger groups, it's the group that takes the energy as well, right? It's not about me. It's not about me on the personal. It's about what other people are bringing. And that's so important, because you can teach some groups and, you don't go to half the places you can go when you get those large groups, like what happened in the festival. You put the music on, it starts pumping, and then before you know it, you've got however many people joining the dance, and they're up for it, they're contributing. And again, that's the we consciousness, isn't it? It's never about the one person, the individual person. It's about the group, and that's what carries the vibration. And again, that is part of the teachings of what we're doing, isn't it? It's we're in this together. We're not, isolated. We're not an island of ourselves. We're in this together. We're in this for healing together. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so wonderful that you're holding your space and helping others to find that path.
Well,
It's wonderful.
it's a privilege. It's an absolute privilege. And yeah, I can't imagine be doing anything else.
What would you tell? Because I think it's time to round off. We're
Yes.
in the hour.
Gosh.
What would you share to somebody um, coming into the somebody like your daughter, where in a life where everything is can be quite impressive, chaotic, a lot of signals and a lot of substances to enjoy, to get addicted to,
Yeah.
and they're trying to find a way out. What would you tell them?
So what would I advise them in searching, or how to manage, or how to navigate? How could you say more? What?
Inserting a way out.
Well, to find a path, definitely. In our practice, we have the sadhana, which we've spoke about. We have the seva, which is finding, a way to give back, be in service, to help others, not in sacrifice, not including yourself, but aware where you can find a deeper meaning. The gems and the treasures happen through serving others. So that's the savor, and of course we know this is very much at the heart of our practice. And then sangat, that's the community, which we've also talked about. The the scriptures and the Sabbath speak about crossing life's ocean, and how are we going to travel this life? Are we going to be swimming it across the ocean on our own, struggling through all the waves, or do we get a boat, a big one, of other like-minded souls, conscious community? That's the Sangha. So I would say, a spiritual or conscious community, at least, to journey with, to be inspired by, to be supported by, but also that, I would say, get a good teacher. Really get a good teacher. That teacher becomes the reference. And I would say a teacher with a solid practice and a legacy that's followed a path, and this is really the straight and the narrow. And, it's easy, isn't it? We spoke about this earlier. It's easy to jump ship from any practice. And things become or look far more attractive, easier, whether that's drugs, whether that's partying, whether that's shopping, the consumerism, whatever that is. That even in the spiritual, there's the spiritual supermarket in many practices. There's many things that can draw us out. But to have a really good teacher and a guide, not as a god, a guide, and a conscious development of your connection to spirit, not to live through that teacher, but that person is there to mirror, to reflect back to you. Not that we get in that codependent fixation on the teacher. They're there to guide, they're there to empower, not to give you the ego boost, which is what we all want, right? That's what we want to be told. We've done well. We want that nurturing. Yeah. But the teacher really serves us in a different way to navigate the terrain. If you're going to, specifically, if you're going to walk a spiritual journey, they've walked ahead. They know the pitfalls. Wow.
And which mantra would you advise? What's the mantra that you feel would support most, or has supported you most?
Yes. Well, I would say Sat Nam. It's simple, right? Remember it. You take it everywhere. Sat Nam on the breath. It's been with me from the years of practice. It's my go-to. It's called the Bija mantra, right? It's known as the seed mantra. Within that contains all. I love that expression. All is in the small.
And what does that? How I know that there's an explanation, but what does Satnam means to you? How have you interpreted and lived it?
How have I lived it? Well, yeah, I never sort of feel a confirmation on that. My understanding and relationship, which is ongoing, is Sat is truth, and Nam is that practical alignment of consciousness. Is the sound of the infinite realm or the supreme consciousness. So Sat Nam is truth personified in this identity, this moment. That Sat comes from the word Satya, which is flow of truth, or the flow of energy. So we could say Sat is the highest truth. It's not just, oh, I speak my truth right now. No, it's that infinite flowing truth that is undying. And then Nam is where we apply the conscious identity. So when I say Satnam, when I vibrate Satnam, when I think Satnam, I'm acknowledging that the true identity. It's like a remembrance in the heart with my breath. And then it becomes a living concept, And I haven't got to sort of remember some long mantra. It's like this, the sutras. These short little threads are what help us keep on track, keep in alignment. So I love the short ones personally. They help me. And in fact, my daughter, I remember when I used to be in the car, and getting angry or whatever, or frustrated, and she'd go, "Sat Nam, mummy, Sat Nam." Yes, thank you, darling.
Oh, that's a beautiful gift to end with. But now to the world, yes, let's
Yeah,
personify that infinite truth that is within us all.
exactly.
I want to thank you for being on the
Oh,
podcast.
what a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. What a lovely thing to be able to share and talk.
Yes, and I think you've touched some people not I think I know your story will touch some mothers or some young adults who are looking their way.
Mm.
Thank you for inspiring them very much.
Pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. Well, thank you for hosting this platform. And yeah, what a beautiful platform to have for people to listen on the way to work or when they're driving, or yeah. What a great
Yeah,
great times we live in, right? That
exactly.
we can do this. Yeah. Bless you.
You too. Take care.
You too, Satnam.
Oh.